So here we are again talking about the Lectric XP 3.0 brakes, and even though I've stated and I still stand by it, the brakes are powerful enough and they can be adjusted to stop strongly. The problem I'm having is that they require very frequent adjustments. On my commute, there's a lot of elevation change, so I'm heavy on the brakes going downhill into work, and there's just a lot of hilly terrain where I live generally, and it feels like every 3 to 4 rides I'm having to make adjustments to the brakes, even sometimes every 2 rides. I'm looking to upgrade in 2 different ways. The first way is going to be a very simple, just swapping out the brake calipers for name brand Shimano disc brake caliper. This should be a straight swap, and this is going to keep the brakes as mechanical brakes, not going to hydraulic. This is the Shimano BR M375 mechanical disc brake. So I'm basically just going to replace the caliper with another mechanical caliper. This should have much better pads, number one, and I'm also hoping that the braking mechanism itself provides more leverage and more braking strength, but we'll see. So that's one option. The other option I'm looking at is a hydraulic disc brake. This is the MT200. And this will be a hydraulic disc brake without the electric cutoff switch. This is a lot lower cost than the ones that do have the cutoff switch incorporated, and they should be pre-bled and pressurized, ready to go. Should be a stronger braking system, and also should require less adjustment than the mechanicals. So I'm going to experiment with these 2 types of upgrades and see what I end up with. But I'm thinking a good low cost option could be to switch out the mechanical brake in the rear and then just go with a hydraulic on the front. That way I'm going to keep one of the electronic cutoff switches. So in an emergency stopping situation, you're going to be applying both brakes anyhow. By applying the rear brake, I'll still have the cutoff switch because I'm just going to switch out the caliper. And in the front, I'll have the hydraulic for greater stopping power. Another option could be to just switch both to mechanicals. But I'm going to be really testing the durability of these systems also, because I don't want to be having to have calipers that require very frequent adjustments because the brake pad material is weak or wears out quickly, and the cost of brake pads is not much lower than just getting a replacement caliper like this. It's one of the reasons I decided to go with just a full caliper instead of playing with the pads. We'll see how straightforward it is to just swap out the caliper. I'm going to start with the caliper in the front, and then later I'll switch this caliper over to the rear and install the hydraulic system in the front. And I'm going to run with it for several weeks or months and see how durable it is, and I'll give you my evaluation and feedback on this upgrade and see if it's worth it. Now I'm really hoping this caliper upgrade will be a direct swap. I think the spacer that's already part of the electric braking system will position the new caliper in the right position. There's only one way to find out. Let's start by removing the existing caliper. There's 2 bolts that hold it against the spacer. So that we have the caliper loose. Now we just need to remove this bolt here to release the cable. Okay. Yeah, it does look like the existing spacer will work with this new caliper. Good. So let's get the cable through here. Let's just tighten this down temporarily to hold it in place while I get the caliper on the bike. Oh, now I think I'm going to go ahead and use the new bolts that it came with. They do have Loctite already from the factory, so that makes them a little bit more difficult to get on by hand, but appreciate the Loctite. So the caliper is loose so I can center it. I'm gonna have to do a separate video just on brake adjustment and centering and positioning. For this video, I'm just gonna get it on and start using it, see how it feels. So it really was just three bolts you have to deal with. The 2 bolts here that hold the caliper to the spacer, and then the 1 bolt that clamps down on the cable itself. So I'm betting it's gonna scrape there in the initial setting. Yeah, so I'm gonna back off this interior pad a little bit. Now before I bed in the brakes, I'm going to wipe down the rotor with some 50% alcohol solution. So looking at the caliper that I removed, There's just a tiny bit of material left. It's going to be hard to see on the camera probably, but there's very little material left on the pad that actually gets activated by the piston. So it was almost time to change out the pads anyway. And that's with only 260 miles on the bike. So in 260 miles I pretty much went through the brake pads on the original Caliper. And again, it's because I have a long downhill descent into work. There's a lot of hills where I ride, and I ride with a passenger too. Just one ride with a passenger and I'll have to be adjusting the brake pads because of the wear. We're gonna go out and bed in the new pads. Park Tools recommends you get up to cruising speed, then brake until you're down to about walking speed. Go back up to a typical cruising speed. Hit the brakes till you're down to walking speed. You do this 10 times in a row. There are 3 major categories of brake pads. As you move from resin pads to semi-metallic to full metallic, you will see an increase in price, an increase in pad durability, an increase in stopping power, a negative increase in noise, and also negatively, you will see an increase in rotor wear. The stock XP3.0 pads, at least in my case, appeared to be semi-metallic. The Shimano mechanical calipers that I replaced the stock calipers with have a resin or organic pad. So it may appear I'm going backwards, but it is a higher quality caliper and a higher quality pad. So we'll see what happens. But if I do not see an improvement in wear, I will try copper pads next. So I do feel the brakes feel a bit stronger than the stock brakes and a lot more consistent as far as the lever feel, and they're a lot quieter. The typical grinding sound that you hear with the stock brakes and brake pads is not there. No screeching and no grinding compared to the stock pads. But I'm gonna take this bike in tomorrow on my daily commute, and I'll be able to get a much better sense over a long ride if the brakes feel consistent without that sense that they're needing frequent adjustments. Yeah, as I bed them in, they've actually begun to feel stronger. Very nice. So far so good. If you find this type of content useful, please consider subscribing and hit that like button to be notified of future content.